Hey, so you tell I got my at least part of my Tron suit on from earlier. Um,
Good for you.
so, guys, what I wanted to do today is switch back into the 24 because you guys know that form better, and it's a little smaller, and start talking about how you approach this from a little higher level.
Okay.
You've got the outer physical choreography, and you guys should have that for this first form, although we can review it. And then you get the Negong, the inner work, and the Shinyi, the intention, and you should have some kind of feeling for that. And then you start working on personal expression and flow. And to me, the personal expression is, at least in part, understanding that you're telling people a story. When you do a performance, if it's music or movement or architecture, you're telling people a story. And there's always a beginning, a middle, and an end to that. How you structure it depends on you as an artist, but you should have some feeling for it. And then the personal expression is built on that structure. So personal expression, the kind of things that you might do with personal expression just has to do with your particular way of doing a move, your speed, your rhythm, etc., etc. So what I wanted to do today, I think we watched. Didn't we all watch Stevie Ray Vaughan the other day? A 10-minute thing.
Yeah, I saw it.
I want to watch it again, and I want you guys to analyze it while you're watching it. You might even write. I'm going to write this. I'm going to do the same thing, and see if you can detect the basic structure of how he's structuring the music. Now, in a certain way, all kinds of music, at least that kind of music, has a certain common structure. But then this is a very extended guitar solo, so it's much closer to what we do when we do the forms. Look at the basic structure underneath that, and then let's talk about it, and then let's see to what extent something like that. We're just sort of picking something to look at. I could pick the Rachmaninoff Third Piano Concerto, but it's just too long. It's too long to watch.
Yeah.
But this is about 9 minutes. There's a very discernible structure in here. Let's get the structure down, and then we'll talk about it as it might apply to our form. And then maybe we can do the form and see whether we can really feel that structure in there. One of the reasons to do structure is, remember what Master Zhang used to say: Tai Chi is not a lake. It's not just flat water. You don't just start it and you go through to the end and it's just flat. It surges like the ocean itself. It surges and changes. And the structure that I'm talking about is something to help you find your own version of surging. What is the ocean doing? Some days it is a little quieter, some days it's really noisy, right? So let's watch this together, and then come up with half a dozen points where we can say that, well, these have to do with the structure in there. Okay, so let me check one thing. No, I'll have to check it later. I think that was about the first 3 minutes. That's the introduction. That's the beginning. So there were three parts to it. there was a very slow introduction where he basically played the tune very slowly, very gently almost, all right? And then he did it again, only he did it louder. It wasn't faster, but it was louder, and it was uh, giving you an idea of where he was going. So the first part of the introduction was very simple, very, very simple. Where he just, here's the theme. I'm gonna elaborate on this theme. The second part is to take that theme and say, I'm gonna go in this direction with it. Some loud, fancy music, right? The third part of the introduction was his vocalization. And again, he did two verses, so they mirror the first two instrumentals that he did. All right, and what he's doing with that, and he ends up using his own name. About to drive poor Stevie Ray insane, he says. So he's really pulling himself into it and saying, this is my version of this old song, because it is an old song. He didn't make the song up, right? So that's the introduction. I was going to check the time, but I'll have to do it later. That's the beginning. This is 9 minutes, and that probably takes up 3 minutes of it, the whole first third of it. All right, let's go back and listen to the second half. Okay, so he did the introduction. It was the first 3 minutes, actually, first 4 minutes. And then he had about 3.5 minutes in the middle, and he did, by my count, he did 4 variations on the theme. First one was pretty straight ahead, but it mirrored what he gave us a preview of in the introduction. And then he did a second one where he really worked on dissonance. So there were some real dissonant, purposeful dissonant notes in there and some hard picking. The third one, he really slowed down. He really slowed down and just gave everybody a little bit of a rest. And you think about how necessary that is in a story like what he was telling. You can't just go at super speed the whole time. You just exhaust everybody. So one of those variations, he really slowed down, gave himself a breather, and gave the audience a breather. That was really an important thing. And then he sort of this final crescendo. He did a fourth variation, which I just wrote down flying fingers, because he was just going as fast as he could with all that stuff, right? And that little picking and stuff. And then the last minute and a half was his closing, where he segued into playing behind his back, and then did a final vocal, closing with a non-instrumental vocal line, wasn't even playing the guitar, and then some fancy flourishes at the end. So there's a real definite structure. And I'm sure he thought about all this. I've seen him play that same song rather, in different contexts. And it's basically the same thing. There's a lot of, or some improvisation, but basically that same structure. So there's a beginning, there's a very definite beginning where he sets the theme, then there are a series of variations, and then there's a fancy closing. So how do we apply that to Tai Chi? You've got 24 moves. You are going to have an introduction, you will have a middle section, and you will have closing. And you would be wise as a practitioner to throw in there somewhere a quiet place for yourself and also for the people that are watching. So it's not just you start and you go at the same speed until you're 24 done. The pace is going to change from time to time. If you watch, maybe later this afternoon, I'll grab 2 or 3 different people doing this form, and we'll look at them. I'm not sure we'll watch through the whole form, but we'll watch. Maybe we will. We'll watch how they structure the form, because they are structuring the form. They're thinking of this as a story. Imagine you're listening to a song by someone, or a recitation. Maybe a recitation is better. You know how when some people recite, that is, they sound like they're reading. It's just all monotonous. It's all in the same tone, and it just goes like this from the beginning to the end. It's awful. It's really difficult to find someone who's good at recitation, who actually, oh, you really want to listen to it. And that's what you have to do with Tai Chi, and it's not easy to do, because Stevie Ray is loud and wild. It really catches your attention. The music really brings you up. Tai Chi is different. Tai Chi is very quiet. It's about something that's very, very subtle. I think I've told you guys this story before. In fact, you may have even been there. When we did the workshop at, I can't even remember the name of the place, but the place up in the Sierras years ago. And the first night, we had 6 or 8 people from Master Zhang's group, and we had our group, and we did forms for each other. And when the folks in Master Zhang's group did it, the person who was kind of leading was Kat Kroll. Well, Kat was in her mid-80s when she was doing that, but Kat's been doing Tai Chi for 30 or 40 years. And afterward, people came up. They didn't ask me who the young, athletic people were. What they asked me about was who was that older lady, because she had something that people were really responding to, right? Yeah. She had some soul. There wasn't anything fancy going on athletically or anything, but lots of people noticed her. I probably had 4 people over the course of the next 20 minutes or so who came up and asked me. All right? That was really interesting. They didn't ask about the other people, they asked about Kat. So part of what you want to do, at least I think you should do, when you're getting to the point that you've got the outer physical choreography and you're at least beginning the process of grabbing the Neigong and the Xin Yi, is to think about, in China, Tai Chi, yeah, it's a personal art, but it's also a collective art. It's done in community, and they do it for each other all the time. So they have banquets all the time. And even though they're in a restaurant, they clear the tables away, and the restaurants know this is going on. They prepare this. They prepare a stage on the floor in the middle of the restaurant. And people are asked to get up and do the form, a form of some kind. And it's very informal. Everybody's talking and eating, but it's a collective endeavor. So you can start your Tai Chi career with the understanding that, yes, you're going to perform. It's like learning to sing. Well, it's a good thing to be able to sing in the shower. It's a good thing to sing for yourself, but you might want to think about singing out there to the rest of the world too. So think about our form. To me, personally, and it's not like the form has this built into it. You have to build it in yourself. This is what it's like to me. The beginning of the form, to me, has a real beginningness to it. So for me, maybe the first 3 moves or so, 3.5 moves, are very quiet. They really do sort of set a theme. I mean, I'm not thinking about setting a theme, but they're quiet because I'm quiet. And about halfway through the 4th move, something starts to happen for me. It starts to get a little more intense. So that's one thing that I notice that I do. So I would set the beginning of this, maybe that first quiet phase is the first 3 to 3.5 moves for me. Right? I say 3.5, I'll tell you why. This is where it starts. With that part of the movement, so I'm also already in move 4. By that time, something has come up, and I'm starting to not necessarily go faster, but be more intense. There are other places in the form. So, for instance, the ending of the form has a truncated repetition of the punching sequence. The punching sequence looks like this. But that's the first one. The second one looks like this. And you express a little Fajin. That's toward the end. Now the Tai Chi form is quieter than Stevie Ray Vaughan. But you add a little pizzazz toward the end. Right? Just to show people that you can do it. Right? So it's a much quieter version than playing the guitar behind your back, but still, you put a little flash in toward the end. And then I've been asking myself in my mind, all right, where's the quiet period? Well, it's a much quieter form anyway. But there's a sequence at the beginning of the third section. And so forth. Especially that backing off. So to me, that's the section in there where you quiet down a little bit. So the beginning of the form is really the whole first section. The variation on the themes is the second section. The third section is the quieter part of it, and the fourth section is a little more flashy. Does that make sense? That's kind of the way that I do it. All right, let's do this, and let's do the whole form from the beginning. We just have time, and think about that, and just see what you want to do. Okay, well, for me anyway, that was interesting. I've kind of thought about this stuff in the past, but it's interesting to lay out this landscape that you're about to go over, and start to think about how you want to express each of these things. So this is just my take on it, but that first section is introduction. It's kind of goes from very gently setting the theme to a little bit more energy. The middle section is about variations on that theme. The third section, there's some real rest points in there, and the fourth section is uh, by far the most intense section, right? So that's kind of how I lay it out. It is not just one speed or one one mood. It's not one. Maybe I'm searching for this word here. There are different moods through the 24, and I think you need to be aware of that based on how you feel doing the form. Where do you feel it's like, it's very soft, it's very gentle. Oh, but the mood changes over here. It's a little more intense. It's a little more martial. And then you just become aware of that and express that a little bit more for your audience. Any thoughts, Susan? Any thoughts? Can't hear you.
Yeah, I was struggling a little bit because there are parts of it that I just, I'm kind of out of practice with. And so I had a little bit of difficulty from that point of view. But I see what you're getting at, and it makes a lot of sense to look at it that way.
You think about, I mean, you certainly catch this in piano. So you think about Rachmaninoff, right?
Mhm.
Somebody like Alexander G that we both like. How many different colors? They often talk about colors in piano. Well, there's no color there. The color's in us, the color's in our minds, but he's able to bring different colors out of the music, sometimes that I've never even seen in music before. But when he plays it, and other people do too, they bring certain rhythms and colors out that's like, oh, there are potentials inside the music that
Yeah.
some people see and other people don't see, right? Or maybe they're actually adding to them too. Ran, any thoughts?
I was thinking that it's interesting the fact that we like to say that we increase our speed as the form
Yeah,
advances. And I think that's one of the reasons. Obviously, like you forget to go slowly, but also there's a certain momentum that
yeah,
gets built. And then you're suddenly like, okay, no, now we're doing this. Let's go.
yeah, yeah. I think that's absolutely true, Ran.
Yeah.
I mean, the fourth section is by far, to me, the most martial, the most spectacular, right? I don't mean it's better, it's just got a different color, a different mood to it. And that's not by chance, all right? Um, I've heard this said about music, it's certainly true about literature and stuff, is you hit them in two places. You hit them at the beginning and you hit them at the end. Because at the beginning you want to wake people up and go, okay, I'm about to do something. I'm going to do something that's going to be interesting and you want to watch it. And you hit it again at the end because you want them to go away thinking, wow, that was really spectacular. And Stevie Ray, when we watched him, that's exactly what he did. The introduction, the introduction that he did is basically what most people do is the whole song, and only they would end it. But he was just going, well, that's just the beginning. It was quieter than the ending, but it was fairly spectacular. Then the whole middle section is just insane. The variations on the theme. And then the ending truly is spectacular. That was, I told you guys, I watched some reactions on YouTube to Stevie Ray playing this. And everybody says about the same thing. That's the best guitar solo I've ever seen. And I've watched a lot of guitar solos. It was beautifully structured. He's wonderful with his playing. He's very, and you know, playing behind your back, you think, well, that's impossible. Well, it's actually the same thing as playing in front. You're just playing behind. I'm not saying it's easy, but but nobody else does it. So when he added that in there, it's a little, by the time you're done, it's like, what planet is this guy from, right? Well, I don't know that we want to be that spectacular with our Tai Chi, but it's interesting to think about applying those same kind of general storytelling rules to what we're doing here. Okay, guys, tomorrow, since Susan and Rand, I think it would be good to do a refresher on this form. So we'll just start. We'll do the first section. We'll see what we need to work on in there. If we have time, we'll go on to the second section. We'll just get back up to speed with this form, right?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Have yourselves a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.